Have you ever had a pet? And if so, what kind of pet did you have? Maybe you're someone who loves dogs, or perhaps you prefer cats, or maybe you went for something smaller, like a gerbil or a hamster. Maybe you went for something more exotic and adopted a bird like a parrot. Either way, I'd bet that most of you made a conscious decision to adopt these animals because it was what you wanted. However, for some people, the animal chooses them, and for others, it's a situation where they're almost forced to adopt them, which can potentially lead to problems. With that in mind, here are 20 people who accidentally adopted monsters. But before we begin, make sure to subscribe to our channel and leave a like. Now, let's get started. Number 1. The hippopotamus. Hippos are among the most dangerous animals in the world by a large margin. They are known to split humans in half with their jaws, so should we believe that one was voluntarily adopted? Well, in the case of Jessica, it seems that's exactly what happened. This also happened in South Africa, when a reserve guard and his wife found a baby hippopotamus on the banks of a river after a flood. They then raised the hippo as their own, and it became one of the world's biggest animal stars, given how friendly it was with people. It even appeared on Oprah's show, and that's some major star power. This just shows that monsters can be beloved pets if under the right circumstances. Number 2. Rhinoceros. How exactly does this happen? After all, rhinoceroses only live in one place, which is Africa, and they're not exactly the easiest creatures to adopt. Well, as it turns out, in South Africa, a rhinoceros had lost its mother and was struggling to connect with others. And that's when it was adopted by the most unlikely figure, a cat. Mui the cat and Nandi, the rhinoceros, share a unique and special friendship that goes beyond what you'd expect from such a situation. Their owner noticed that the cat really followed them around, and when the rhinoceroses appeared, it wouldn't move away from them. It's not exactly something you see every day. Number 3. Polar bear. Dumas and his polar bear have such a strong connection that, apparently, the bear gets jealous when he starts talking to women nearby. No, this isn't a joke. Mark met his bear when he was very young, about 8 weeks old, and after raising him, Mark trained the bear to act in TV commercials, movies, shows, and so on. Their relationship is based on trust and teamwork to achieve the desired results. On one occasion, he even placed his head in the bear's mouth voluntarily, and nothing bad happened. But again, this isn't something you should try at home. Number 4. Bear. Believe it or not, there are several stories I could put on this list about bears being kept as pets, and I'm not even talking about just one type of bear. This is the case of Jim, who, along with his wife, cared for a Kodiak bear named Jimbo for over 2 decades. When they wanted to get close to the bear and hug him, the bear was happy and gave them the biggest and best bear hug he could, because he really cared about them. This connection was built through the bond they developed with the bear, which resulted in this kind of affection. However, this isn't something you should try with just any random bear, as domesticated bears usually live in special sanctuaries just for them. Number 5. Alligator. Crocodiles and alligators are pets with a unique history, especially in places like the United States. And no, they're not thrown into the sewers, as many think. That's actually a myth. Some people, especially in Florida, love the idea of having a crocodile or an alligator at home, like this woman, who has an alligator named Rambo. She's from Florida, and keep that in mind. She's had him for 7 years, until she started having problems, specifically the problem of not having enough space to contain him within the permits required to own the animal. After all, it's an alligator, right? Yes, you really need permits to have a crocodile or alligator in certain states, and you need to be able to contain the animal within your property. These animals can measure from 3 to 4.5 meters in length and weigh a ton, so you really need a large space to keep them. They won't fit in your grandmother's apartment. Number 6. Tiger. Yes, the big cats aren't over yet, and this time we're talking about a Bengal tiger. They are the largest of the natural big cats and aren't exactly the type of animal people should have around. However, there are many people who keep tigers as pets, which isn't something to be proud of. One example is the 7,000 tigers, if not more, in the United States, owned by individuals or zoos. And why is this relevant? Well, that's about twice the number of wild tigers that exist. Yes, some of it is acceptable due to conservation and preservation efforts, but there are people in Texas who somehow bought tiger cubs at a gas station, and the United States doesn't monitor tiger cubs unless they're captured or brought in illegally, which is something to think about. Number 7. Lion. Now here's a lion story I'd like to share, but it's not just about a lion. It's about a woman named Ana Julia Torres. She is an inspiration to many people because she dedicated her life to helping animals in need, and this included a lion. Fact: she has helped many animals over the years and contributed to their survival by placing them in a special enclosure. She has gotten close and interacted with all these animals, and that's why they love her so much. So much so that when the lion I mentioned saw her approaching, it stretched its paw out of the cage and hugged her, which is not something you see every day. And it wasn't the only one showing this kind of affection. Number 8. Opossum. Barley's story is both tragic and inspiring. Barley was an opossum who was only a few weeks old when his mother and siblings were killed by a car. Fortunately, the opossum was rescued by a veterinarian and was cared for by a woman named Murray, with whom the opossum instantly bonded. The two became so close that Murray began sharing Barley's story, and it reached a large audience. A woman saw the story and desperately wanted to meet him, just for the cuteness of the little creature. Barley became so loved that he even won a pet competition, which is really cool. However, Murray will be the first to admit that you shouldn't seek to adopt an opossum, as it doesn't always end well. Number 9. Raccoon. Meet Felix, a guy who's never afraid to adopt an animal in need. I can prove this because he has many rescues at his home. But what I'm going to tell you about now is Tito, a raccoon. Tito was a rescue that was trained by Felix to the point where one day, the two of them, along with one of Felix's cats, decided to go to the pet store to buy toys. Yes, it's real, and there's footage to prove it, and it's simply amazing. The most incredible thing is that Felix also has another rescued raccoon named Cheeto, a hedgehog named Theo, a puppy named Luna, 4 ferrets, and 3 other cats named Ash, Misty, and Connor. I doubt the guy has much time for himself with so many animals to care for. Number 10. Moose. Now, you probably didn't expect this, but it's true. Someone managed to have a moose as a pet. However, there's an important detail. The moose was a Shiras moose, the smallest species of its kind. The woman who adopted the moose shared that Emma, the moose, was caught in barbed wire in the wild, and there were no other moose around to take care of her. So she adopted her. It's worth mentioning that it took some time for Emma to get used to her, and Emma even tried to attack her a few times, but eventually, they formed a bond, and a beautiful relationship developed. Now, they are inseparable, and there are many photos and videos of them having fun together. It's truly inspiring to see, but we should remember that this is a small moose, and you shouldn't try this with any moose you come across. Number 11. Owl. This family rescued a young owl and took it home. Because of the care given to the owl, the bird became attached to the family, meaning it began to see them as its family. They named it Michael, and have been caring for it ever since. One thing the owner notes is that Michael is still quite wild, and she is very careful when allowing it to interact with children. They can't release the owl because it's bonded to the family, so releasing it into the wild would be like killing it. Owls can indeed be pets, but they're not as simple as Harry Potter would have you believe. For example, Michael is known for tearing up any piece of paper he can grab with his talons. Keeping an owl as a pet requires a lot of careful thought and compliance with legal regulations. They have specific needs, including spacious aviaries. Proper diet and veterinary care are essential, and it's crucial to research each owl species, as there are many, and they vary in size, temperament, and habitat requirements. Owls are nocturnal and might not be suitable for all households. Legal restrictions, permits and ethical concerns surround their trade and conservation. Additionally, they require a significant time commitment and understanding of their natural behaviors. Before considering an owl as a pet, the prospective owner should consult a specialist to ensure the well-being and legality of this kind of arrangement. Number 12. Kinku. Now I'm going to talk about Florida, because it seems like whenever something strange or abnormal happens in the United States, it always happens in Florida. In fact, I'm going to talk about the out-of-control exotic animal market there more than anything else. People buy exotic animals thinking it's fine, but then they abandon them, which leads to mass reproduction and problems. That's why Florida is infamous for having invasive species of all kinds. In this case, a couple in Florida decided they would get a kinku, which is a type of animal you can find in Central and South America. It's a pretty interesting creature to look at, of course, but it's not exactly what you'd call a standard pet. They even admitted that this animal is extremely demanding and that they have to put in a lot of effort to care for it. They even said that the animal isn't well trained, which is no surprise, since it's not a typical pet. It's a wild animal that comes from Central and South America. What did you expect? So please, if you're venturing into the world of exotic animals as pets, do your research first, because the last thing you want is to end up with something you can't control or properly care for. And some animals are simply not meant to be pets. Number 13. The biggest pit bull. There are certain dog breeds in the world that have a bad reputation because of how people train them to be aggressive. In the United States and some other parts of the world, the pit bull is considered one of the most ferocious dogs and not something you should have as a pet. Now, this is really a huge misinterpretation of the facts, but people believe it anyway. If you look at this massive pit bull, you might think it's one of the most dangerous pets in the world, but that couldn't be further from the truth. Meet Hulk, and yes, he lives up to his name when it comes to size, as he weighed around 80 kilograms, 176 pounds, at just 18 months old. That's right, he was a beast in no time. Not only did this family proudly show off their massive dog, but they also used the opportunity to debunk some of the myths surrounding the breed. In this case, they talked about how Hulk was actually very gentle with their son, and how the boy could even ride on the pit bull without any issues. As they pointed out, you usually see pit bulls at their worst and not at their best, which is why they carry this stigma. But let Hulk be a lesson that not all of these dogs are out to destroy things. Number 14. The wolf spider. I'm not going to enjoy this one because spiders are genuinely terrifying. They're one of the worst things on earth, and I'm not ashamed to say that. Yes, I know they're important for the environment and the ecosystem, controlling pests and all that blah blah blah, but honestly, I don't care. In this case, the story is about a man who decided to help a wolf spider that got stuck in his house. Normally, if you saw a wolf spider this big, you'd think, I need to get rid of that or burn it with fire. But this guy carefully tended to the wolf spider and helped it, one leg at a time until it was free. There you go. It reminds me of the movie Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, where the parents had to save a spider that later helped them in return. Yes, I know, I'm probably the only one who remembers that movie, but what can I say? Sometimes a little kindness is needed when someone or something is in need. Number 15. A tortoise. I'm going to have fun with this next story because I'm not talking about a monstrous cat, dog, snake, or some other kind of beast. I'm talking about a tortoise. A tortoise that not only was raised by a man in Tokyo, but was also regularly taken for walks by him. And he never complained. That's right, this man takes his reasonably sized tortoise on regular walks and actually walks it. He clearly knows that tortoises are slow, but that doesn't stop him. He seems to genuinely enjoy it, and it shows why this man has the patience of a saint. But wait, there's more. Not only does the man take his tortoise for walks, but he also dresses it up. That's right, he's put clothes on the tortoise, and it doesn't seem to mind. After all, what could the tortoise do about it? It's not like it could take the clothes off. Now, I won't pretend to fully understand what's going on between this man and his tortoise, but what I can say is that it's a unique relationship, something I'd love to learn more about. When did he get the tortoise? I mean, they live forever. When did he decide it was the right time to take it for a walk? And so many other questions. These are the ones that are going to keep me up tonight. Number 16. Python snakes. Snakes might not seem like a traditional pet, but they're something many people acquire for one reason or another. Usually people buy smaller snakes. They don't typically go for massive anacondas or anything like that. But in the case of this 16-foot python, it's a different story. Apparently, the father in this family, L, owned a large python named Cher, and was so comfortable with the snake that he decided to introduce it to his daughter, Emmy, when she was just 2 years old. So yes, he put an actual python next to his 2-year-old daughter and thought it was fine. In the end, everything turned out okay, but that's not really the point. Children that small really shouldn't be playing with snakes like this because, while they may be docile, they're also unpredictable. However, this is the exception, not the rule. You should never have a giant snake like that in your home when there are children around because the risks of such a situation far outweigh the benefits. Number 17. Bobcats. Now we head to Texas, where apparently everything really is bigger. Melissa and Mick McAllister have 2 bobcats as pets, named Gypsy and Monaco, and they are more than happy to share their lives with these cats and with others. According to them, the plan was to adopt just one of these wild cats, but a few months later, they changed their minds and adopted another. I'll give them credit. It's much easier to raise a bobcat than some of the other animals on this list. For example, these cats are only about twice the size of a regular house cat, so you're not exactly dealing with a massive feline. But they are still wild cats, which means they can attack at any moment and likely cause far more damage than a domestic cat ever could. Even the owners admit that things can get rowdy between the two, and that they scratch a bit harder and bite more than they'd like, but they still love the cats. The question is, why bobcats? Well, Mick came across one as a child on his family's farm and thought it was a kitten. The family released it after realizing what it truly was. For him, having a bobcat was like a dream come true, and now he gets to live that dream twice. One last bit of irony is that, besides sleeping in the McAllister's bed, the bobcats also use the human bathroom. Number 18. Puma. I've talked about one of the big cats before, but there are many others that people would love to have as pets, and one of them is the puma. These are fast cats, which is why a shoe brand is named after them. And in Russia, a couple actually found a way to have one of these big cats as a pet. Russians are generally fearless, so I'm not entirely surprised they tried to do this. But here's the twist. They didn't find the puma in the wild, nor were they tricked into taking one home. Instead, they saw it at a local zoo and somehow managed to convince the zookeeper to let them take the animal home. Do I really need to explain the laws that were likely broken here? Not to mention how reckless and dangerous this is, even for people in Russia. The irony is that it didn't go wrong for them. Quite the opposite. Not only did they dedicate a section of their house as the puma's living space, but they also raised it so well that they documented its life on Instagram. They even managed to walk the puma on a leash, something you don't typically put on a cat. They take it to public areas, and the puma behaves remarkably well. It doesn't hurt anyone, doesn't destroy the furniture, and is well-mannered. They named it Messy. Of course they did. And just to make it clear once again, no one in the world would recommend you try this at home with a random animal you find at the zoo. These are exceptional cases and not something you should attempt regularly unless you want to end up with a lot of problems at home. Number 19. A baby elephant. Now I know what you're thinking. I really do. How could someone accidentally adopt a baby elephant? Well, as a certain fictional scientist once said, life finds a way. This was true for Roxy Dankworts, founder of Wild is Life, an animal sanctuary in Zimbabwe. She was tending to her sanctuary one day when she came across a young baby elephant. The elephant was lost in the river and nearly drowned, as its herd wasn't there to protect it. Roxy tried to locate the herd to return the elephant but couldn't find them, so she decided to help the elephant herself. The calf was rescued in February 2014 and was severely underweight when found, weighing only 56 kilograms, 123 pounds. Typically, an African calf should weigh between 90 and 100 kilograms, 198 to 220 pounds. And due to the trauma of being separated from its herd, many believed it shouldn't have survived. But it did, and Roxy made sure she was there for it every step of the way. Roxy took things slow and did everything she could each day to feed the elephant, including preparing a special feeding formula. The two even shared a bed. Must have been a pretty big bed, right? Well, hold on. Actually, it was her favorite couch. Regardless, the baby elephant not only recovered but bonded with Roxy in a way that defies all logic. Fast forward to 2020, the elephant, now named Moo, not only follows Roxy everywhere, but also prefers her house over the sanctuary where it's supposed to live. Fortunately, Moo hasn't destroyed her home, but let's hope this mother and child bond doesn't lead to too much property damage in the future. This just goes to show what a little kindness can do for someone, or some animal. Number 20. One-eyed dog. Now I'll admit, the title of this video isn't exactly the kindest. I mean, after all, not every animal is a monster, not even those that can be quite aggressive toward humans. However, when it comes to perception and how people choose to view things, it can get pretty ugly when animals are labeled as monsters. For example, many people would agree that a puppy is the perfect type of pet. After all, they start out small and quickly become extremely loyal to you, almost instantly, and you get to watch them grow into adult dogs you can enjoy spending time with. But for the puppy named Kevin, his life was going to be tough from the very beginning. You see, Kevin was born with only one eye, and this happens more often than you might think, depending on certain circumstances at birth. But what makes Kevin labeled a monster in the eyes of many is the fact that he was born with his eye in the center of his head. Yes, he's a true Cyclops puppy, and that alone is more than enough for some people to call him a monster. He was actually one of two puppies born at the same time, but his twin brother didn't have any of the unusual traits that Kevin possesses. For example, not only was Kevin born with one eye, but his lips were much larger than they should have been, and he had a strange patch of skin that couldn't be explained. While many were repulsed when they saw Kevin, I want to make one thing clear. He is not a monster. Oh no, far from it. What likely happened was a defect in the embryo as it formed in his mother's womb. There are several conditions that can lead to these kinds of traits, and this has happened with other animals around the world. Doctors even said he was truly lucky to have survived, which is something worth celebrating. Thank you very much for watching the video. If you liked our content, please subscribe to our channel and leave a like. Also, check out other interesting content that is appearing on your screen right now, and I'll see you in the next video. Until next time.